Have you ever learned a new English word, wrote it down carefully, and forgot it the next day? Yeah, me too. It's frustrating, right? You feel like your memory just pressed the delete button overnight. But here's the truth, it's not your fault. Our brains are built to forget things that don't seem important. The good news? You can train your brain to remember English words longer. In today's episode, I'll share why we forget words so easily and how to fix it with simple tricks. These aren't boring study tips. They actually work in real life. You'll learn how to connect words with stories, emotions, and daily habits. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and relax. By the end of this episode, you'll know exactly how to make new English words stick for good. Ready? Let's begin. Let's start with a simple question. Why do we forget English words so easily? You study a new word, repeat it a few times, and maybe even write it down. The next day, it's gone, like it never existed. Sounds familiar, right? Don't worry, you're not alone. Almost every language learner has faced this. And the truth is, forgetting is part of how the brain works. Our brain is like a smart but lazy computer. It keeps what it thinks is important and deletes what it doesn't use. If you don't use a word, your brain says, okay, not needed. Let's erase it. That's why learning once and moving on never really works. You see, memory is like a muscle. If you don't exercise it, it gets weak. And if you don't use your new words, your brain won't keep them. Now, here's the interesting part. There are three main reasons why people forget English words so fast. The first one is simple: no repetition. You read the word once, maybe twice, and never come back to it. Your brain never gets the signal that this word is important. Imagine you meet someone once at a party. The next day, you probably won't remember their name. But if you meet them every day for a week, you'll never forget it. Words work the same way. Without repetition, your brain thinks it's safe to forget. The second reason is learning without context. Many learners try to memorize long lists of words. Just words, no sentences, no real meaning. They look like numbers in your head, random, disconnected, and easy to lose. Think about it. Which is easier to remember? Apple, book, run, or I read a book every morning? When words live inside a story or sentence, your brain can connect them with images and emotions. That connection makes memory stronger. The third reason? Passive learning. This is when you just read or listen, but don't practice speaking or writing. It's like watching people work out at the gym and expecting your muscles to grow. It doesn't happen that way. To remember words, you need to use them actively. Say them out loud. Write them in sentences. Use them in real situations. That's when your brain says, oh, this word again. I guess it matters. And slowly, the word moves from short-term memory to long-term memory. Now let's talk about one more thing: your emotions. Our brain loves meaning and feelings. If a word connects to something personal, your brain keeps it longer. For example, if you learn the word ocean and remember your last trip to the beach, it stays. But if you just memorize ocean means sea, it disappears quickly. So the secret to remembering English words isn't about studying harder, it's about studying smarter. Review your words, use them in context, and make them meaningful. Because your brain doesn't remember what you tell it to remember. It remembers what you show it's important. So next time you forget a word, don't feel bad. Your brain is just doing its job, but you can train it. You can show it which words matter. And once you do that, English words won't slip away so easily. They'll start to stay. They'll become part of your everyday language. And that's the moment you realize forgetting was never the problem. It was just the first step toward learning better. Now let's talk about something every learner struggles with: the common mistakes. You know those little habits that seem harmless but quietly kill your progress? Yeah, those. Let's break them down one by one, because once you see them clearly, you can fix them easily. The first big mistake: memorizing long lists of words. We've all done it. You open a notebook, write down 20 or 30 new words, and repeat them. It feels productive for a moment, but a few days later, most of those words vanish. Why? Because your brain doesn't learn through lists. It learns through meaning, connection, and repetition. Imagine trying to remember 20 random phone numbers. Impossible, right? But if each number belonged to a person you know, suddenly it's easier. The same goes for words. They need context. So instead of memorizing apple run decision, learn sentences like, I made a decision to run every morning. Now the words form a story, and your brain loves stories. Mistake number two, translating everything into your native language. It's tempting, I know. You see a new word? You write down its meaning in your language. It feels like you understand it. But what actually happens is this: your brain builds a bridge that's too long. Every time you hear the word beautiful, you cross the bridge back to your language first. It's slow, it's heavy, and it keeps you from thinking directly in English. So, what's the fix? Learn words with images, with short definitions, or in English examples. Instead of beautiful koiks jep, try beautiful means something nice to see. Even better, picture a sunset, a flower, or someone you love smiling. That's how your brain starts to think in English. Mistake number three, not using new words. This one is huge. You can't expect a word to stay if you never speak it. Think about it. When you learn a person's name but never say it again, you forget it. The same happens with words. To remember, you need to use them out loud, in writing, in your thoughts. Try saying a sentence with your new word 3 times today. Maybe when you're cooking or walking. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to use it. That's how the brain decides. Okay, this word is part of our world now. And mistake number four, learning single words instead of phrases. A single word is fragile. It's easy to lose. But a phrase is powerful. It carries meaning, emotion, and rhythm. For example, instead of break, learn take a break. Instead of decision, learn make a decision. See the difference? Phrases give words a home. They make them real and easier to remember. So, let's recap. Don't memorize long lists. Don't depend on translation. Don't just read or listen. Use your words. And don't study single words. Learn phrases. These are small changes, but they make a huge difference. They turn learning from something mechanical into something meaningful. When I first started learning Spanish, I made all of these mistakes. I memorized lists, translated everything, and rarely spoke. I knew a lot of words on paper but couldn't say a full sentence. Then I started learning phrases, repeating them out loud, and using them in context. That's when everything changed. Suddenly, Spanish words stopped disappearing. They started to stick. So if you recognize yourself in any of these mistakes, that's a good thing. It means you're learning what doesn't work. And that's the first step toward what does. Language learning is not about being perfect. It's about noticing, adjusting, and trying again. Because every mistake you fix makes your memory stronger and your English more natural. So from today, forget the lists, drop the translation, and speak your new words into life. Let's move on to one of my favorite parts, learning words in context. This is the first real trick to making words stay in your memory for good. So, what does in context actually mean? It means learning a word inside a story, a sentence, or a real situation, not just alone. Think about it. When you learn the word run, it's just a sound, a definition. But when you learn I run every morning before work, now it's a picture. You can see it, feel it, imagine yourself doing it. That's what your brain remembers. Pictures and experiences, not isolated facts. Our brains are like storytellers. They don't store words as single blocks of data. They store them as scenes, emotions, and connections. That's why you remember a funny story from years ago, but forget a random fact from yesterday. When you put a word inside a sentence, you give it a story, a place to live, and that story becomes the hook that helps your brain find it later. Let me give you an example. Say you learn the word necessary. If you just repeat necessary means important or needed, it'll vanish soon. But if you use it like this, is it necessary to bring an umbrella today? It sticks because now you're imagining yourself looking outside, thinking about the rain. The word connects to a real life image. That image is the key to long term memory. Here's another one: delicious. You could memorize delicious means tasty. Or you could say, this cake is delicious. The second one works better, right? You can almost taste the cake in your mouth. That sensory connection helps your brain store the word deeper. The more senses you involve, sight, sound, taste, feeling, the stronger your memory becomes. So, how can you practice learning in context? Start simple. Whenever you learn a new word, make your own short sentence immediately. Don't worry if your grammar isn't perfect. What matters is that the word lives inside a moment or story that's real to you. Say it out loud, write it down, picture it in your mind. For example, if your new word is focus, say, I need to focus on my homework tonight. Now the word focus is tied to a real action, not an empty definition. Another great trick is to notice how native speakers use words naturally. Watch a show, listen to a podcast, or read a short story. Underline the phrases that stand out. When you hear take a break, don't just learn break, learn the full phrase, because that's how it's used in the real world. And your brain learns best from real patterns. And here's something even more powerful: repetition through real use. Let's say you heard I'm running late in a movie. Try using that phrase during your day. Say it when you're late for work or class. Your brain goes, oh, this is that phrase we heard earlier. Boom, connection made, memory reinforced. Children learn this way too. They never sit down with vocabulary lists. They hear words in sentences, in songs, in games, and without trying, they remember. That's how we, as adults, can learn naturally again, by putting meaning first, not memorization. So from now on, don't just collect words. Build moments with them. See them in your day. Speak them out loud and make them part of your world. Because learning in context isn't just about better memory, it's about living the language. And when you live it, use it, feel it, experience it, English stops being a subject. It becomes part of who you are. That's the secret. That's how you make words stay, not for a test, but for life. Now, let's talk about one of the most powerful learning secrets: spaced repetition. It sounds technical, but don't worry, it's simple. In fact, it's one of the easiest and most effective ways to make words stick. So, what is it exactly? Spaced repetition means reviewing words again and again, but not all at once. You give your brain time to almost forget, and then you remind it. That's how real memory is built. Here's how it works. When you first learn a word, your brain puts it into short-term memory. If you review it right away too many times, your brain gets bored. It says, yeah, I've seen this already, and lets it go. But if you wait just long enough to almost forget, reviewing it becomes powerful. It tells your brain, oh, this again, maybe it's important. And that's when the word starts to move into long-term memory. Think about how we remember songs. You don't listen to your favorite song 10 times in 1 hour and expect to love it forever. You hear it a few times over several days. Each time it feels familiar but fresh. That's spaced repetition in action, naturally. So how can you use it when learning English? It's easy. You just need a review system that reminds you at the right times. Some people use apps like Anki or Quizlet. These apps are smart. They show you words right before your brain forgets them. Others prefer old school flashcards. You can write words on one side and sentences on the other. Review them the next day, then after 3 days, then after a week. If you still remember them, wait longer next time. If you forget, review sooner. The key is timing. Not too soon, not too late. But you don't need fancy tools to do this. You can turn your house into a learning space. Write new words on sticky notes and place them where you'll see them every day. Motivation on your mirror. Focus on your laptop. Healthy on your fridge. Every time you see them, your brain gets a little reminder. And those small natural reviews are exactly what your memory loves. Let me tell you a quick story. When I was learning French, I used to study new words for hours at once. The next day, I could barely remember half of them. It was frustrating. Then I tried spaced repetition. 10 minutes a day, small reviews, spread out over time. Within a few weeks, I started to remember without trying. The words became familiar, like old friends. That's when I realized it's not about how long you study, it's about how smartly you review. And here's the best part: spaced repetition doesn't just help your memory, it helps your confidence too. Each time you remember a word you thought you forgot, you feel a small victory. That little spark of success keeps you motivated to keep learning. Here's a simple plan you can try starting today. Learn 5 new words. Review them tomorrow, then 3 days later, then 1 week later. After that, come back to them in 2 weeks. If you can still remember, congratulations. That word is now part of your long-term memory. Remember, your brain loves patterns. When it sees a word appear again and again over time, it marks it as important. You're teaching your brain what to keep, and the more you do it, the stronger your memory becomes. So, don't rush. Don't try to memorize everything in one night. Give your brain time to breathe, forget a little, and then remember again. That's how real learning works. That's how words stop being strangers and start becoming part of your language. So go ahead, review smart, not hard, because when it comes to memory, timing is everything. Let's move on to the next memory secret: active recall. It might sound fancy, but it's actually one of the simplest and strongest tools for learning. So, what is it? Active recall means trying to remember something without looking at your notes. It's like testing your brain on purpose, giving it a small challenge. Most learners don't do this. They read their notebooks again and again, nodding as if everything's clear. They think, yeah, I know this word. But the real question is, can you remember it when the book is closed? That's the difference between passive learning and real memory. Here's the science behind it. Every time you pull information out of your brain, you make that memory stronger. It's like lifting weights for your mind. The harder your brain works to recall, the deeper the memory becomes. Reading is easy. Remembering takes effort. But that small effort is exactly what builds lasting knowledge. Let's imagine you've just learned the word challenge. You write it down, repeat it, maybe even make a sentence. A few minutes later, close your book and ask yourself, what was that new word again? If you can say it without looking, great. That's active recall. If not, that's okay too. Look at the answer, repeat it, and try again later. Each round makes your memory stronger. When I was studying Spanish, I started using this technique every day. I'd learn 5 words in the morning, then test myself in the evening without notes. At first, I failed half the time. But after a week, something amazing happened. My recall got faster. The words started to appear in my mind naturally when I needed them. It felt like my brain had finally learned how to remember. You can use active recall in so many fun ways. Try flashcards. Write the English word on one side and a sentence or picture on the other. Look at the side with the picture and try to recall the word before flipping it. Or use a language app that quizzes you automatically. You can even ask a friend to test you during a walk or coffee break. Make it part of your routine. The more you test yourself, the more your brain adapts. Here's a little daily practice you can start today. After you learn a few new words, close your notebook. Say each word out loud without looking. If you forget one, don't worry. Check it, then try. Again in a few minutes. You'll be surprised how quickly your recall improves. It's not about perfection. It's about consistency. Every time you make your brain search for a word, you're building a mental pathway. And each time you walk that path again, it becomes stronger and easier to find. That's how you move from short-term to long-term memory. You can even turn active recall into a game. When you're waiting in line or on the bus, think of yesterday's words. Like, can you still remember them? Can you use them in a sentence in your head? If yes, that's a win. If not, no problem. You've just discovered which words to review again. Here's a fun fact. Forgetting is actually good for you. When your brain struggles to remember, it learns better afterward. So don't feel bad when you can't recall something. That small challenge is the exact moment your brain grows stronger. Active recall is powerful because it teaches you how to think in English, not just recognize it. You stop depending on translations or notes. You start trusting your own memory. And that confidence builds every time you succeed. So from now on, don't just read your words. Test yourself on them. Close the book. Ask your brain to find the answer. And celebrate every time it does. Because each small win brings you closer to mastering English for real. Now let's talk about something simple but powerful. Using your words in real life. Because here's the truth. If you don't use a word, you'll lose it. No matter how many times you write it down or repeat it in your head, your brain won't keep it unless it sees the word being used. So, how do we make sure the words we learn actually stay? The answer is speak them, write them, live with them. I know speaking can feel scary at first. Many learners wait until they feel ready. But the truth is, you get ready by speaking. Even if it's just you, alone in your room, that's a perfect place to start. When you say the words out loud, your mouth, ears, and brain all work together. It's like telling your brain, hey, this word is real. Keep it. Here's a simple example. Imagine you just learned the word focus. You can read it, understand it, maybe even write it in a notebook. But if you say it out loud, I need to focus on my work today. It feels different. Now your brain connects the word to your voice, your thoughts, your emotion. That's how memory grows strong. When I was learning Italian, I used to talk to myself while cooking. I'd point at things and say their names. Piatto for plate, cucchiaio for spoon. At first it felt silly, but soon those words became automatic. They popped into my head the moment I saw the object. That's what using language does. It turns words from knowledge into instinct. You don't need a speaking partner to practice, though it helps. You can talk to yourself during your daily routine. Describe what you're doing. I'm making coffee. This smells delicious. I'm tired today. Simple, natural sentences. It's not about perfection. It's about consistency. Every time you use a word, even in private, you tell your brain it matters. If you do have a friend or teacher, that's even better. Make it a goal to use your new words in conversation. Maybe you just learned the word challenge. Try saying, learning English is a challenge, but I enjoy it. Now you've connected the word with your own real-life experience. That emotional link makes it unforgettable. And don't forget about writing. Speaking is powerful, but writing helps too. Try keeping a short daily journal. Just a few sentences using your new words. It doesn't have to be perfect or long. Something as simple as today was great. I felt excited about my project. Works perfectly. When you write, you slow down and think carefully about how words fit together. That reflection strengthens your memory even more. Here's a fun tip. Create your own mini challenges. For example, choose 3 new words each day and promise to use them before bedtime. Maybe in a message, a short text, or a quick talk with a friend. It's like giving your brain a little daily workout. The more you use those words, the more natural they'll become. Remember, language isn't something you just study. It's something you do. It's alive, active, constantly moving. And the more you move with it, the faster you'll improve. So if you catch yourself thinking, I'll speak when I'm ready, change that thought. Start now. Speak with what you have, even if you make mistakes, especially if you make mistakes, because mistakes mean you're practicing, and practice means progress. So here's my challenge to you. After this episode, pick one new word you've learned recently. Say it out loud 3 times. Use it in a sentence about your life. Write it once in your notebook. Then try using it again tomorrow. You'll notice something amazing. It'll start to stick. And when you keep doing that, word after word, English will stop feeling like study. It will start to feel like part of who you are. So go ahead, use your words, speak them, write them, live them. Because language isn't learned by memorizing, it's learned by living. Now let's talk about one of the most enjoyable parts of learning, connecting words to emotions and images. This is where memory becomes creative, colorful, and fun. Because the truth is, our brains don't remember boring things. They remember what makes us feel something. Think about it. You probably remember your first day at school or a funny moment with friends years ago. Why? Because there was emotion, maybe excitement, fear, or laughter. That emotional spark makes a memory stick. So, if you want to remember English words better, give them some feeling. Turn them into pictures, stories, or moments that mean something to you. Let's try it right now. Take the word excited. You could just memorize the definition, feeling happy and enthusiastic. But that's dry. Now imagine it differently. Picture yourself opening a birthday gift or hearing good news. You smile, your heart beats faster. That's excited. See, the emotion creates the memory. When you feel the word, your brain keeps it longer. Here's another example. The word cold. You could memorize it as low temperature, but instead, close your eyes and imagine holding ice in your hand. You feel the chill, maybe even a little sting. That physical sensation locks the word into your brain. The stronger the picture, the stronger the memory. When I was learning French, I used this technique all the time. For the word pluie, which means rain, I imagined walking home without an umbrella. Rain pouring down, clothes getting wet, that smell of the street after rain. Every time I heard pluie, I could feel it again. That's why I never forgot it. Emotion, please. Image, unforgettable. If you're a visual learner, drawing can be a great trick too. Next to each new word in your notebook, draw a small picture. It doesn't have to be perfect art, just something that reminds you of the meaning. For happy, you could draw a smiling face. For travel, maybe a small airplane. That tiny drawing helps your brain connect visual and verbal memory. You can also create short, silly stories that use new words. The stranger or funnier the story, the better you'll remember it. For example, if you're learning the word necessary, imagine a penguin asking, "Is it necessary to wear a tie to the North Pole?" It's weird, but you'll never forget it. That's the power of imagination. And here's another simple exercise. Connect words to your personal experiences. If you learn hope, think about a time you really hoped for something. Maybe waiting for exam results or for someone special to text you back. When you tie a word to your own life, it stops being just vocabulary. It becomes part of your story. So, how can you make this a habit? Every time you learn a new word, pause for a few seconds. Ask yourself, what picture or feeling does this word give me? Let your mind create a mini scene or emotion. That tiny act of imagination multiplies your memory power. And don't worry if it feels silly at first. That's actually a good sign. The sillier, more emotional, or more personal it feels, the easier it is to remember. Your brain loves creativity. It's wired to hold on to things that stand out. So, next time you open your notebook, don't just see words. See stories, see feelings, see moments. Turn your vocabulary list into a gallery of memories. Make learning alive, visual, and emotional. Because in the end, language isn't just about grammar or rules. It's about connection to people, to ideas, to feelings. And when you connect a word to something real in your heart or mind, you're not just learning English, you're living it. So take your next word and give it a picture, a color, a feeling. Let it live in your memory like a story worth keeping. That's how you remember words not for a week, but for a lifetime. So, We've reached the end of today's journey. You've learned why we forget words and how to make them stay. But remember, it's okay to forget sometimes. It's part of the process. The magic happens when you review, use, and connect words to your life. Each small effort adds up day by day. You don't need to study for hours. Even 10 focused minutes can change everything. So be patient with yourself. Keep practicing, keep speaking, keep smiling through the mistakes. Because every word you use becomes a brick in your language story. And before you know it, you'll look back and realize how far you've come. You're doing great, truly. Thanks for listening today, and remember, every word you keep alive brings you closer to fluency. See you next time. And until then, keep learning with heart.